Hi, I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas in Frisco. I own Positive Pathways Counseling, which has been established for 14 years. I am a level 2 certified trauma therapist, and I also have a certification in clinical treatment of narcissistic trauma abuse. And this is going to be a bit of a longer video today. It's also going to be a little bit different than what I usually do because I usually don't need notes. However, I want to make sure I get this 100% fully correct. Complex PTSD is something that is not even recognized in the DSM-5 TR right now, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the Diagnosis of Mental Health Issues. It's the 5th edition, and it's been revised. So that's what all that means. It still does not recognize complex PTSD as a diagnosis. PTSD is there, but complex PTSD is not. In Europe, they have acknowledged that it is an actual diagnosis. However, because it's not in the DSM, there is zero information in America that you can actually use unless you're a practitioner to help you understand what is complex PTSD, what are the symptoms of it. So the reason I'm going to be reading off my notes is because I want to make sure that I cover all the symptoms thoroughly. There's quite a few. There's 13 of them. I actually added one because I felt like they left one out. So I'll let you know I added isolation behaviors as one of my own. It's not even a diagnosis yet, so I'm not breaking any rules. Okay, so CPTSD emerges from sustained exposure to an unsafe environment. So basically, it's death by 1,000 cuts. You are constantly exposed to an environment where you feel like you have to walk on eggshells or you're going to get yelled at, where you feel like you're unsafe, where you feel like you're going to be criticized. There's a lot of psychological, physical, emotional abuse going on, and you are experiencing it on a daily basis. A lot of times this begins in childhood, and it also occurs in relationships. So symptoms of complex PTSD. The first one I want to talk about is emotional dysregulation. Basically, it's where you're riding a roller coaster up and down. One moment you might feel really angry, and then the next you might feel really elated and happy. And there is no identifiable trigger or reason as to why you feel this way. You just do. The second one is feelings being too big. Or really, this is part of emotional dysregulation, right? You feel like your feelings are just too big because we overreact to things. Our nervous system has been on high alert for years, maybe decades. So it's constantly scanning the environment for reasons to get upset. And often it will overblow issues because it wants to protect you. The body keeps score. Relationship difficulties. Relationships are minefields because you want to be close to people, but you also have learned that you can't trust them. So you either have no boundaries because you're afraid of abandonment and you want that closeness, or you have too rigid of boundaries. You don't let people in because you're afraid they're going to hurt you. And so you're trying to prevent yourself from further hurt. That's one of the reasons why I added isolation. We tend to isolate because we don't want to let people see our pain. We don't want to let people know our vulnerabilities. And we often isolate because we don't trust others, because we've had our vulnerabilities used against us by our abusers. So I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want you to know what's going on with me. So I'm going to isolate and not answer the phone. So I don't have to tell you that I feel depressed today because you might use it against me later. Disassociation. That's a really big one that I see in my practice. Loss of time, lack of memory of really big issues that you know you should remember. Sometimes it'll just be as basic as feeling like a sense of derealization or depersonalization, like you feel like things aren't real. Sometimes, like at the lightest state, it'll feel like you're watching your life happen, but you're not participating in it. And I actually refer to it as the balloon head. Sometimes you'll just feel like you're a floating head and you feel a little dizzy and weird, and you know how to get to Target from your house. But once you get in the car to drive there, you're lost and you don't even know where you are. even though you know where you are. So it's like a loss of what's going on, a loss of concentration, depersonalization. And it shows up a lot in numbing out. It can show up a lot. Let's see here if I missed anything here. No, numbing out, just loss of time, things like that. Loss of memory issues. So the body keeps score. I said that earlier. Physical symptoms do arise from this type of psychological narcissistic abuse. Autoimmune disorders, incredibly big problem. Chronic migraines, chronic pain. Let me see here. Oh, chronic indigestion issues is another big issue. So let's see, did I miss anything? Fatigue, sensitivity to noise and light. Things like that, because our adrenal system has been on such high alert for so long, it's caused us to have a lot of physical manifestations of symptoms. There's actually a documentary, I think it's on Netflix or Prime, one or the other, but it's called Stress, the #1 Killer. So there you go. There's proof of that right there in CPTSD symptoms. A loss of meaning and hope. You feel helplessness. You feel stuck. You feel trapped. And I call it learned helplessness. You can look up, I think I've actually talked about that earlier on my videos, but I will talk about learned helplessness more later. It's basically where you just feel like you're trapped and there's no way out. Shame, guilt, self-blame. You internalize, basically, the abuser's view of you. What they have criticized you about, you internalize, because then at least you feel that you have some sense of control over the situation you're in which you feel helpless. If I could just be good enough, if I could just please them, then maybe they won't yell at me today. Maybe they'll acknowledge me today. Maybe they won't hit me. Maybe they won't push me. Maybe they won't withhold money from me. Maybe they'll call me beautiful instead of ugly. That leads to difficulty with self-compassion and self-care. So I find a lot of my clients have trouble even showering weekly, brushing their teeth, taking care of themselves. They don't believe they're worth it. There's a lack of belief of your self-worth because every single day it's been eroded. It's a death by 1,000 cuts, right? So if I hear for 10 years on a regular basis, even if it's not daily, even if it's 4 times a week, 5 times a week, that I'm irresponsible, that I'm a bad word, I'm not going to say it starts with a C or a B, that I am dumb, that I don't know what I'm doing, that I'm a failure, that I'll never amount to anything. What am I going to slowly start to believe? Even the strongest, most self-assured person is going to start to feel a lack of confidence after years of that. And so that brings me to the most insidious of all, and I know I use that word a lot, but the most problematic issue is a recreation of trauma. So basically, we will recreate the same situations that we have been stuck in because it feels familiar and it's subconscious. We seek out people who are emotionally unavailable. We may seek out people who we're not aware of consciously, but they're sending signals that they might be controlling. They might be emotionally unavailable. And we create more trauma bonds and re-traumatize ourselves. So that's probably the hardest symptom after coming out of an abusive relationship with complex PTSD. Let's make sure I did, hypervigilance. I talked about the adrenal system being on high alert all the time. But if you're constantly like that, you're constantly scanning the environment for dangers. You're going to be startled easily. Light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, things like that. You're going to just be tense all the time and thus leading to the physical manifestations of health issues. I hope that this covered complex PTSD thoroughly. I know I went kind of quick. There was quite a few symptoms to go through, but I hope that I helped you understand a little bit of what complex PTSD is. Thank you. Have a good day. If you want more information, by the way, please look me up at www.positivepathway.org. I'm happy to help or refer you to a counselor who can.